technology advisor, you get advice, one-on-one partnership, and tailored productivity solutions, including computers with Intel Core processors, servers, storage, networking, plus industry-leading monitors and accessories. It's how they help your small business make the most of every minute. To speak with an advisor today, call 0800 085 4878. That's 0800 085 4878.
Watford, it's chilly outside, and you're staying in with your feet up, and they can stay up. Because with Hive Active Heating, you can the perfect temperature without even lifting a finger.
Alexa, ask Hive to boost my heating.
And by never having to heat an empty home, you could save up to £120 a year on your heating bill.
Alexa, play my Nice and Toasty playlist.
Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Hello, Vitality Health Insurance.
Oh, hi. Is it true if I join Vitality I get de facto 5-star rated cover, can speak to a GP 24/7, get rewarded for staying active with things like Starbucks coffee, get a little sausage dog to live with me, and you can beat my current premium by up to 10%?
Absolutely. Except one of those.
It's the dog, isn't it?
Yeah.
Time to review your health insurance. Just search Vitality Health. Vitality. Positively different. Minimum monthly premiums, terms and conditions apply.
Otto Sergey now checks for better energy deals so you don't have to. Meaning we can all sit back and relax. Can't we, Sergey? Sergey?
Hey? What?
Tell the people that we can sit back and relax.
Oh, we can sit back and relax.
Oh, don't waste energy worrying about energy. Automate it with Otto Sergey. Compare the market. Keep life simple.
Customer preferences determine alerts based on tariff type, payment type, supplier rating, and minimum annual saving of £50.
We've got about 46 minutes left to go in trading. The Dow is higher, almost at session highs by 240 points at this point. Let's check on some individual market movers. Lionsgate reportedly considering splitting off Stars into a separate company, though through a sale, spinoff, or special purpose acquisition vehicle. The move would allow the studio to unload debt. That stock, as you can see, is higher by 4%. And shares of iRobot are falling after Raymond James downgrades that stock to underperform from market perform. The firm cites strong competition in the space as well as pricing that's pressuring that stock. You can see down by more than 3.6%.
We have 45 minutes left of trade. We're up 240 points on the Dow. That's very close to the high of the session. Let's get over to Mike for today's market dashboard. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Wolf. Here's what we got for you. Freighted questions. That's what Wall Street's asking about FedEx. We'll get to that in a second. Then rock and roll band, not a musical one, but a valuation band that the market has been traveling in. We'll take a focus on that. And then dull with style. That seems to be boring. Stocks are still in fashion on Wall Street. We'll measure that. And then a mild jolt, a look at the new job market indicator we got today. Freighted questions. Let's look at the analyst consensus setup on FedEx. Did get a downgrade today. Somebody who has been kind of trying to push the bull case and kind of threw in the towel on it today at Bernstein. Now, here's what you see is the distribution has gone radically from very, very bullish on a consensus basis a year ago to being pretty much 50-50. Obviously, a high-quality stock. It's been a great performer over the many years. But here you see just about half and half, a little more than half of all analysts recommending it. And you see the targets have been just slashed. So that's not really telling you that Wall Street sees a whole lot of immediate upside. On a contrarian basis, that's pretty good. You have to get some of the hope wrung out of the story if a stock that struggled is going to bottom. Now, take a look at the valuation picture. Also pretty dramatic when you look at a long term. This is now a 10-year trend in the forward price earnings multiple of FedEx. It's now below 11. So this is basically long-term downtrend. Back here, of course, that was when earnings were basically zero. So that's the recession. That doesn't really apply. But basically, really wrung a lot of the valuation next to that. The problem is forward estimates keep coming down too. And see, relative to the S&P 500 trading, roughly half the market multiple. So at some point, the market's probably going to feel like this is all getting overdone, all the negativity. But then again, I said that before the last earnings report, and those forward earnings got rolled down. All of a sudden, the stock looked like a value trap and not a value play.
And Mike, similar moves would we have in UPS and its fellow rivals?
Not quite as dramatic, no. I mean, FedEx has really borne the brunt. Obviously, UPS has had its troubles too, the broader transports. But FedEx, just its leverage to air freight and really much more of a global story as opposed to domestic. That's why FedEx in particular has struggled. And, of course, the breaking of the relationship with Amazon as well.
Mike, thanks so much. Mark, what's your take on these guys? Are they quite binary and linked to the trade news?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really tough to get excited about FedEx and or UPS when we're late cycle. You know, these tend to underperform. There's all this evidence that the global economy is slowing, and then you throw in competition from Amazon, you know, doing their own logistics. So, you know, these are just companies that I would say right now would not be on my buy list at all, anywhere near it.
Yeah, I mean, Mike showed us that longer-term chart of FedEx, and it really had that downward trend since 2010, even though we've really been in a nice run since then. So it's kind of gone anti or against the trade, not.
Yeah, it has. But, you know, at the same point in time, you know, there's been all this talk about increased competition and you know, FedEx. So the U.S. economy has been strong, right? But, I mean, globally, we've seen weakness now for several years, and FedEx has high exposure to the global economy, not just the U.S. economy.
Right, and that's, of course, where the weak spots are when you're looking globally.
Exactly.
Well, after the break, Wall Street weighs in on media. We'll round up new analyst calls on Disney, Netflix, and Roku. That's in today's Word on the Street.
And later, Consumer Reports out with a new review of Tesla's Smart Summon. That's the feature that says you can be driven around automatically. We'll discuss that coming up next.
The chance of being abducted by aliens is about 1 in 7 million. Oh, unlucky. Never mind, at Curry's PC World, there's a 1 in 10 chance to get half your money back on all 2019 LG OLED TVs. Like the LG C9, described by Which as simply the best. Its Dolby Atmos gives you a surround sound experience that's out of this world. And there's up to £500 off. So the question is, are you feeling lucky? At Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply. GB16 plus. See currys.co.uk.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium. This Thursday, hear the home and away call as the second-place NFC East New York Giants visit the first-place AFC East New England Patriots at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
It is long enough, and it is good!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long. Today, the Cotton Bowl in Dallas will be rocking for the 150th edition of the Red River Showdown. On one side, you have 11th-ranked Texas, led by their star QB Sam Ehlinger. On the other side, you have undefeated and 6th-ranked Oklahoma, looking to avenge last year's loss. Texas quarterback Jalen Hurts will look to continue his Heisman campaign on the national stage. Kickoff starts at 12 p.m. Eastern. Just search college to listen today.
You're listening to TuneIn, where you can hear all the audio you love in one place. Live NFL games, the hottest music, breaking news, and podcasts. Push play and go about your day, only on TuneIn.
Make sure to follow TuneIn today, so you're always in the know. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just search @TuneIn.
Welcome back to Closing Bell. Today we're featuring 3 media calls in Word on the Street. Firstly, JP Morgan cutting its Q4 earnings outlook on Disney, citing near-term uncertainty on investment spending for its direct-to-consumer platform and choppy integration of Fox assets. The firm now forecasts Q4 EPS of 95 cents compared to previous estimates of $1.05. Macquarie upgrading Roku to outperform from neutral and raising its price target to $130 from $110. The firm says the company has a leading position in the US and could grow its user base from its current number of 31 million to 72 million within the next 3 years.
And Rosenblatt Securities slashing its price target on Netflix from $330 a share to $264. The firm cites, quote, unprecedented competition from the likes of Apple and Disney, as well as forecasts a Q4 subscriber growth miss. Monness Crespi Hart also cut its price target on the stock today, and Evercore ISI cut its target earlier this week. So for more on Netflix, let's bring in the analyst behind Rosenblatt's note, Bernie McTernan. Bernie, thanks for joining us here. So the stakes are just getting higher for Netflix with all this competition, and you think they're going to whiff?
Exactly. Yeah, thanks for having me. So we're in line with the street for 3Q, but for 4Q, we're about 10% below the street. We have a 3% decline in subscribers year over year for the fourth quarter, while consensus is plus 7% year over year for 4Q.
So how much have you reduced your actual revenue estimates or earnings estimates compared to the price target?
Yeah, so
is there a multiple kind of
exactly? So our long-term free cash flow estimates have come down about 5% on higher cash content spend. We think increased competition will drive them to spend more on content, and then it's a 15% on the multiple. So right now we're at our price target implies 4.5 times 2021 revenue.
How are you evaluating the competition Netflix is going to have when all of these other streaming services come to service?
Yeah, it's going to be unprecedented competition. And so Apple TV Plus to start, but really it's Disney Plus, and that's going to be November 12th, launching with Mandalorian. Huge amount of content, unprecedented. They've never faced this kind of competition before, and that's why we think subscriber ads are going to be down year over year, and that's going to be a tough 2020 for them as well.
It's quite a big cut in the price target, but no change in the actual recommendation. I mean, 265 target where we are today, neutral sounds about right, but I guess you perhaps one should have cut the price target a little earlier.
Rightfully so. We probably could have. We look smart if we were to sell in the stock, but the majority of my competitors, 7% of the street is buy, so a minority of us are with neutrals or sells.
As for the quarter that we've got right ahead of us, again, talk us through what you expect on the subscriber numbers, and if they were to miss expectations, how big a kind of share price move could we expect?
Yeah, so expectations for 7 million, or the guidance is for 7 million subscribers globally added. And really it comes down to the content. So the content slate's a lot better in the 3Q relative to Q2, but it was front-end loaded. So you had Stranger Things launching July 4th. You had Orange is the New Black later in July, but from then till the end of the quarter, there was kind of a content glut. The Politician was late in the quarter, but Rotten Tomato had a pretty bearish outlook for there. And me and my wife could only get through the first 2 episodes on that one.
Marco, what do you make of the media space? Are you interested in buying Netflix here?
I prefer Disney right here. I mean, I think the valuation's more attractive. There's more upside. They've got a huge major catalyst in front of them with the rollout of Disney Plus. I agree. They have fantastic content, but what I'm wondering is it bingeable content? Is it addictive content? And yeah, I mean, when my daughters were young, they probably watched Frozen 20, 50 times. They watched it a lot. But are they going to have the same kind of content that draws Netflix viewers back time and time again? I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that Breaking Bad movie that's coming out. That should be a good hit for Netflix. But I think when it all boils down to it and you look at these different companies, I don't think Netflix is ever going to get the multiple again that it used to carry in the past, given increased competition, but it's not a winner-take-all market. I think there's going to be a lot of people that have Disney Plus, that have Netflix, so I think there's room for several winners here.
I was going to say, does Disney really need bingeable content to be a winner from a stock perspective?
They don't.
There's so much more there.
They don't, and plus they have Hulu, right? I mean, they're majority owners of Hulu, and something that really doesn't get talked about a lot when we're talking about the streaming wars is, the people that are going to lose are going to be the cable providers, right? Consumers still wants live TV, and you can get that through Hulu Live TV. You can get that through YouTube Live TV. So, there's still an opportunity there outside of just streaming original content.
Bernie, quick final word?
Yeah, I would just say we're actually bullish on the cable sector because of broadband share gains. I think what you need to be bearish on if streaming competition comes that drives more cord cutting, that's media companies who can't pivot away from the bundle. We have a sell rating on Fox because of that reason.
Okay, Bernie, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We've got 34 minutes left of trade, and we're higher to the tune of 240 points on the Dow, almost at session highs. Coming up, we've got your last chance trade. Mark's looking towards the video game space. We'll reveal that call ahead.
And up next, the hunt for yield. We'll speak with BlackRock's dividend fund portfolio manager about the opportunities that he sees right now. And as we head to break, here's a check On bonds, Treasury yields ticking higher today, with the 10-year yield sitting just under 1.6%, about where we were at this time yesterday. Stay with us. Closing bell. We'll be right back after this break.
The Bond Report is...
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month, with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Make sure to follow TuneIn today, so you're always in the know. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just search @TuneIn.
You're listening to TuneIn, where you can hear all the audio you love in one place. Live NFL games, the hottest music, breaking news, and podcasts. Push play and go about your day, only on TuneIn.
Deep left center field. A grand slam!
October baseball is here, and TuneIn Premium is your ticket to the 2019 MLB postseason. Featuring the home and away feeds for every game, TuneIn Premium delivers every call of the ALCS, NLCS, and the 2019 World Series through the voices of the local radio broadcast teams.
Air, left field and deep. He's at the wall.
Now until a new champion is crowned, hear every play of the 2019 MLB postseason live on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Female First as Jay-Z and Beyonce are working on a new song together. A source tells The Sun that they recently shot a music video for their new track. It's one of her most extravagant and expensive shoots. It was mostly filmed in LA and has a highly choreographed routine and also a steamy romantic scene. She's working with some new creatives and is ready to change things up. To hear music from Beyonce, search today's hits on TuneIn.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
Just about 30 minutes exactly here left to go before that closing bell sounds. Here are the three things driving today's action. Sign of optimism on the trade front, as China reportedly says it would consider a partial deal. Minutes from the Fed's last meeting showed division about how to frame future policy, with debate over how to align policy decisions with market expectations. And tech leading the charge today. Apple higher on the back of a bullish call from Canaccord. We'll have more on that call ahead.
Time for a CNBC News Update with Sue Herrera. Hi, Sue.
Hello. Well, hello, everybody. Here's what's happening at this hour. The Turkish military offensive into Syria continuing into the night, where video from the border shows heavy shelling. Kurdish-led forces in Syria say the fighting has killed 3 of their soldiers and 5 civilians, a report not independently confirmed by NBC News. German officials are still looking for one of 2 suspects believed to be behind an attack on a synagogue. The shooting, which killed 2 people, took place on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish faith. It was also live streamed by one of the gunmen. Nearly 2 million Californians may soon be in the dark after that state's largest utility proactively cut power in an effort to prevent wildfires. Pacific Gas and Electric said it took the historic steps after forecasters predicted strong wind gusts of up to 45 miles per hour over the coming days. And police in Michigan are looking for the person who they say rammed a stolen pickup truck into a movie theater in an attempt to steal the ATM inside. Luckily, nobody was injured, but the suspect remains at large. You are up to date. That's the news update this hour. Courtney, back to you.
Thank you very much, Sue. Well, let's send it back over to Mike Santoli. He's ready with the second dashboard. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Courtney, calling this one rock and roll band. Look at how the stock market has kind of rocked and rolled within sort of a trading range type band here. On top is the 5-year chart of the S&P 500 itself. And here is the forward price earnings multiple of the S&P 500. So basically, this is the PE based on expected earnings. What's interesting is between 16 and 17 is where it has spent the vast majority of the last 5 years. So here, let me just draw a line, capping it around 17, and then underneath is around 16. This really was not a surge above that valuation band if you consider the fact that was when we had not yet had the tax cut effects priced into earnings estimates. So in reality, the market was essentially handicapping a rise in earnings. And so we've sort of toggled between these here, and you'll see these periods when we sort of flattened out in the market as we get to around 17 times, and there you go. And what you also will see is if we're caught here, okay, fine, maybe we get a little bit of a lift back to that 17 level or something like that. It'll probably take earnings growth, though, to really start to accelerate this index trend above these levels. That's probably what people are kind of hopefully waiting for. I would point out with much lower bond yield, some would argue 17 times. Is not as fully valued as it would have been a few years ago, perhaps when yields were higher. But that's kind of a semantic argument that doesn't always play in the markets, guys.
I mean, it's stark there, Mike, how much the valuation dropped in Q4 last year in that December sell-off. In terms of the earnings growth, what are we expecting, year over year for next year? Because, of course, market can rise on that in its own right.
Without a doubt. I mean, 2020, I think the estimates are still showing somewhere close to 10% for that year. So if you blended on a 12-month forward basis, it probably looks mid to high single digits. The trick is figuring out, though, if the actual market is priced for that type of growth, or in fact, the market already expects those estimates to come down a little bit. That, to me, is really the front on which we're sort of battling out between bulls and bears right now.
Mike, thanks so much. Now, yields on the 10-year falling sharply over the past 3 months. Joining us now to discuss other opportunities for yielding returns, Tony DiSpirito, head of U.S. Fundamental Active Equity at BlackRock and portfolio manager of the BlackRock Equity Dividend Fund. Tony, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
Let's start with Mike's charts just there. I mean, what do you take of that analysis of where the S&P 500's valuation is at the moment?
Yeah, so I think this has been a rising market, but it's been climbing a wall of worry. I do think stocks are the best game in town. Look at the 10-year Treasury a year ago, that was at 3%. Today it's at 1.6%. We're in a market now where you can actually get more income from stocks than bonds, and that's historically very unique.
Which groups in particular are you looking at for your investors?
So in our fund, the fund I manage, the Equity Dividend Fund, we really emphasize growth of income as opposed to current income. I think there's some value traps amongst the highest yielding stocks, the bond proxies, if you will.
Like what?
Utilities, REITs. REITs are trading at all-time high multiples. So I think there's some risk there. I think you're much better off focusing on stocks that can grow that income over time.
What stands out for you?
An example of an underappreciated stable business is insurance brokers. We need insurance. Companies need insurance regardless of the economy. So even in a recession, companies buy insurance, and it's a good business. It's a capital light business, unlike insurance itself, which requires a heavy balance sheet.
Does that change if one of these Medicare for All plans goes into place?
Okay, so let's talk about HMOs, right? I was talking about corporate insurance, but HMOs, I think the risk of Medicare for All is wildly overdone. If you look at the polls in death, people like their insurance, they just want to pay less for it, but they don't want to give up their insurance coverage. In fact, if you look at the Medicare business, it's actually, there are two pieces. When you sign up for Medicare, you can get coverage from the government in the traditional fee-for-service program or a private HMO. increasingly, seniors are opting for that private HMO. Actually, 37% of Medicare recipients are actually in that private part of Medicare. Medicare Advantage is called.
Mark, where do you stand in terms of high-yielding stocks? What are your core picks?
Yeah, so we like dividend growth stocks in general. We manage a dividend growth strategy for our pre-retiree and retiree clients. Not only over the last 20 years, the dividend aristocrats have outperformed the S&P 500 by about 4% a year, but they've also done so with significantly less volatility. So when you look at some of our top dividend picks, Broadcom, roughly a 3.5% yield, Abbott Labs. So there's companies out there that just as we talked about with regards to growth. Growth is just as important as the dividends. Not necessarily the level of the dividend, but the fact that they can continue to increase that dividend year after year.
Tony, of course, I get the argument that dividend-yielding stocks look attractive relative to where bond yields are. As to the question of whether they're still attractive in absolute sense, do you get worried that we'll see equities broadly sell off because we might be late cycle or we might have a recession around the corner?
So I do think we're towards the later innings of a cycle, but I don't think we're at the end of the cycle. I think this time in the cycle, it's really important that you like what you own and that you be prudent in the way you're investing. But look at the market multiple. It's not out of bounds. It's right in that range, as we were pointing out earlier. So I'm not really worried about valuations.
What about the banks? They're kind of perfectly in the middle of the crosshairs of that question of they look cheap, they've got a dividend, but they might be exposed to where we are in the cycle.
Sure. I like to think about things in stable bucket and economically sensitive bucket. In the economically sensitive bucket, I think banks are one of the best deals out there. They're way safer and sounder than they were historically because they have more capital. That capital provides a cushion in a downturn, yet they're trading at extremely low multiples, 10 times, 11 times current earnings. I think that's the best value in that cyclical bucket.
Got it. Tony DeSpirito, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Well, here we have just about 23 minutes left to go before that closing bell sounds. Let's take a look at where we are in the broader market with the Dow of just about 1% by 254 points. Keep climbing up to those highs of the session. And up next, we have got your last chance trade.
Plus, Apple nearing all-time high levels as one Wall Street firm boosts its price target to $260 a share. We'll break down that call coming up. And as we head to break, here's a check on Halliburton, the company cutting 650 jobs as gas producers cut spending amid weak prices. We'll be right back.
You should.
The chance of being hurt while using a leaf blower is about 3,000 to 1. Oh, unlucky. Never mind, at Curry's PC World, there's a 1 in 10 chance to get half your money back on all 2019 LG OLED TVs, like the LG C9, described by Which as simply the best. Get blown away with Apple AirPlay, Google Assistant and Amazon Alexa built in. And there's up to £500 off. So the question is, are you feeling lucky? At Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply. GB16 plus. See currys.co.uk.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores.
What's happening in college football this week? This Saturday, another clash of undefeated SEC teams. This time in Baton Rouge under the lights. The Florida Gators take their perfect season on the road to face Joe Burrow and the high-scoring LSU Tigers. The action starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. Just search college to listen today.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio happenings across the app. Explore exclusive content.
It's called Indie.
Learn about the hottest new podcasts.
The Nostalgia Mixtape, a new podcast hosted by yours truly, Savannah Shroudy.
And get alerted when the big game's about to begin.
This Sunday is Championship Sunday, when we'll find out which two teams are going to play for the Lombardi Trophy.
Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond, define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn. What if you could keep up with cable news even when you're on the go? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to MSNBC live without any commercial interruptions. All of the news, none of the ads. Listen live on TuneIn Premium today.
What if you could keep up with cable news even when you're on the go? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to MSNBC live without any commercial interruptions. All of the news, none of the ads. Listen live on TuneIn Premium today.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long. Today, the Cotton Bowl in Dallas will be rocking for the 150th
From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca, the Daily Sports Update. NFL action is tomorrow right here on TuneIn. New York Giants at the New England Patriots. Kickoff is 8:20 p.m. Eastern if you want to catch that game.
We do everything each week to adjust to the players that we have on the field, try to do the things that they do best and give them the best chance to compete against the team we're playing against. So this game will be no different.
If you want to catch this game tomorrow, search NFL and favorite your team. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
Welcome back. 19 minutes left to trade. We're up 250 points on the Dow. As you can see, healthy returns, 1.2% for the S&P, 1.3% for the NASDAQ. All sectors on the S&P higher. Real estate at the bottom, but still up 0.5%. Technology leads the charge, up 1.8%.
Got about 19 minutes left to go before that closing bell. Mark, what is your last chance trade here?
So we're going with the video game company. So the company is Activision Blizzard, ATVI. This is a company that got its teeth kicked in late last year. Their Call of Duty launch last year was pretty much a flop. Stock was trading around 80, came all the way down to 40. Suddenly the chart looks better. It's back up to about $53. Reason we like them? They're the leader in esports, and esports is a real thing. Viewership of esports is up around 40% year over year. And there's actually expected to be more esports viewers by 2020 than every major league sport except the NFL. They just rolled out Call of Duty Mobile, broke all kinds of records with 100 million downloads in the first week, and they're rolling out Call of Duty Modern Warfare at the end of the month. So they've got a lot of catalysts in front of them. They continue to take this stock back to levels that it was at a year ago.
They're definitely getting involved, though, in what's going on in the Hong Kong protests.
They are, yeah. The stock kind of shrugged it off today, though, right? Yes, they basically took back his prize money, right? I think they banned him for a year.
Because he expressed support for what's going on in the Hong Kong
Right.
protests.
So, I guess they need to figure out this balance between making money and making a political statement. The stock, I think, initially pulled back after that news, and then it just kind of shrugged it off. So I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have on the stock. We're really just more focused on these positive catalysts that are going to drive dollars right to the bottom line.
ATVI down 1% today, but that's Mark's last chance trade. We have got 17 minutes left. Here's where we stand. We're up 255 points on the Dow, about 1.2% on the S&P 500. Up next, we're taking you inside the market zone, where we will bring you uninterrupted coverage of the final minutes of trade. Closing bell, back after this.
Is this your dream of retirement? Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, and TuneIn Premium puts you at field level for every...
And it's a home run.
Single...
And gone!
Game.
And that gone, a home run.
With TuneIn Premium, catch every pitch of every inning of every Major League postseason game until the final out of the World Series.
0-2 pitch, little half swing, and it hit...
At home or on the road, Major League Baseball's postseason action is on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball is gone.
Upgrade today.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Camila Cabello tells The Sun that dating Shawn Mendes is scary. She says, it's almost more scary because you have more to lose. I think when you fall in love with someone you've known for a long time, there's more at stake. But it also feels more special because it feels like the love story you see in the movies of people who have known each other for a long time but have been too stupid to realize it or say it, and then it happens, and that's beautiful too. To hear music from Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello, search today's hits on TuneIn.
From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with your daily sports update. Today, we've got another Game 5, Nationals at the Los Angeles Dodgers.
You know, you train for it, you dream about it as a kid, and, you want to have those opportunities to just see how your stuff stacks up.
First pitch is at 8:37 p.m. This series is tied 2-2, Game 5. If you want to catch this Game 5, search Nationals, Dodgers, or even MLB. Favorite your team. Set up reminders so you don't miss any of the playoffs. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long. Today, the Cotton Bowl in Dallas will be rocking for the 150th edition of the Red River Showdown. On one side, you have 11th-ranked Texas, led by their star QB, Sam Ehlinger. On the other side, you have undefeated and 6th-ranked Oklahoma, looking to avenge last year's loss. Texas quarterback Jalen Hurts will look to continue his Heisman campaign on the national stage. Kickoff starts at 12 p.m. Eastern. Just search college to listen today.
America's leader in food delivery just got better. Introducing Perks. Millions of dollars in deals and free food nationwide. Download the Grubhub app today and see the perks waiting for you.
We have the ISM readings.
You should be mad at leaf blowers. You should be mad your neighbor always wants to hang out.
I got a new grill.
And you should be mad your smart fridge is unnecessarily complicated.
Make ice.
Making ice. But you're not mad because you have E-Trade, which isn't complicated. Their tools make trading quicker and simpler so you can take on the markets with confidence. Don't get mad. Get E-Trade and start trading today.
The Market Zone is sponsored by E-Trade, now with commission-free trading.
We have just about 13 minutes left in this trading day in the middle of the week here, and we're now in the closing bell market zone. So this is a commercial-free coverage of all the action going into the close.
CNBC senior markets commentator Mike Santoli is here with us to break down these crucial moments of the trading day. And today we've got Mark Tepper from Strategic Wealth Partners here as well. We should mention that markets just took a little bit of a leg low and now up only 176 points on the Dow. We have been up to the tune of about 250 points, just a little slippage as you can see there. There are some Reuters reports out there lowering expectations of the trade talks between the US and China. We'll have more on that when we have it any minute now. But let's kick things off with Apple, the stock getting a boost today after Canaccord Genuity raised its price target to $260 a share from $240 on the back of strong iPhone 11 demand, according to their surveys at least. Meanwhile, Apple facing Chinese backlash over an HK Map app, which tracks police activity in Hong Kong. Apple had initially rejected the app, but reversed its decision, making it available in its app store on Saturday. Mike, analysis in this is based on a survey for the iPhone, so it's not sort of groundbreaking hard data. Price target increase is also quite small. I think also probably just getting a boost today because of the tech sector outperforming on trade hopes until moments ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously got momentum. The stock's been grinding up toward this old high. It's got the stability trade. I think the iPhone, I mean, it's still benefiting from relatively low expectations coming into this generation. And also investors taking comfort that the whole upgrade cycle no longer has as much suspense and drama around it. It's much more of a steady flow as opposed to wondering if something's going to be a hit. That being said, the stock's getting a little bit stretched. The all-time high is about 230. Not clear if it's got a lot of the juice behind it after this move.
Mark, where are you on Apple? It seems like we've been getting a lot of positive notes from the analyst community about the iPhone 11.
Yeah, so we own it. One of the interesting things about Apple is this last quarter was the first quarter in forever when iPhone sales were less than 50% of their revenues. I think it was 48%. You now have wearables and services creeping up to like 32%. So there's definitely this transformation that's happening within Apple. It's positive. I don't know that I would rush out to buy a new phone just because it has a third camera. You know, if they made this thing smaller, that's what would make me rush out, right? I got to get something that fits in my pockets better. So
transformation to services, though, lots of these recent upgrades have been on a decent quarter of iPhone sales, so it's like back to the old. Yeah. But anyway, Apple doing well today, up 1%, slipping like the rest of the market in the last 5 minutes. That's because of breaking trade headlines. Kayla Tausche has that for us. Kayla.
Wilfred, Reuters is reporting that Chinese officials say they are lowering their expectations for progress from negotiations on trade with the United States this week. That is because these officials say that goodwill has been damaged from the Commerce Department's blacklisting of 28 Chinese security and technology companies that Commerce alleges is involved in the detention of Muslim minorities in China. We had heard various and sometimes conflicting reports about the impact of that blacklisting on these talks. There were reports this morning that Liu He, the vice premier of China, was still willing to do a partial deal with the U.S., even if he was miffed by the timing of this policy unveil by the Commerce Department. But now Reuters reporting, according to Chinese officials briefed on talks, that Beijing has lowered expectations for progress. Wilf and Courtney.
Kayla, this week is slightly ridiculous in terms of the conflicting messaging that has come out. Remind us, therefore, the exact format and timing of the actual meetings and when we might have something solid out of them in the next couple of days.
Well, it depends on how well or how poorly they go. They are set to begin tomorrow morning. As of now, our expectation is that talks will go through Thursday and through Friday. That being said, in 13 rounds of talks, we've sort of seen it all. We've seen these talks break early when the two sides get frustrated and they feel there's nothing more to talk about. We've seen the talks get called off before they even begin. And in some cases, we have seen these talks result in a meeting in the Oval Office when they feel there is progress, when President Trump wants a press availability, he wants a photo op with himself and the vice premier. We just don't know which one of those this will be quite yet.
Kayla, thank you very much. Mike, initial drop down to about 190 points now higher on the Dow. Seems to have found a little bit of a floor, so this Reuters headline not taking
every
the
one
full
of these
wind
now
out
is
of
just
sails.
kind of an excuse to take your foot off the gas and maybe feather the brake. It's not really defining anybody's investment outlook. It's really about very tactical trading because you think somebody else might trade on the same news, and I think, but within a range. So nothing is breaking us out of the range. We're just kind of trading the same several points back and forth. Yesterday at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, before we got that rush down, we're at 29.22 on the S&P. We're 29.21 right now. We dropped, we came back.
So jittery, but then we just find our footing all over again. Well, turning now to pharma, Johnson & Johnson shares getting hit after the company was ordered to pay $8 billion in punitive damages by a Philadelphia jury. Meg Terrell has the details. Hi, Meg.
Hey, Cara. Well, J&J investors, of course, are no strangers to legal headlines, but recently they've been focused more on cases concerning J&J's talc powder and opioids businesses. So this one came as a bit of a surprise. A Philadelphia jury awarded a plaintiff $8 billion over his claims J&J downplayed the risks that its drug Risperdal could cause breast growth in young men. The same plaintiff was earlier awarded $680,000 in compensatory damages. The $8 billion award is punitive. J&J called it, quote, grossly disproportionate and said it would move to get it set aside. But it is a reminder for investors of risks from legal events, and J&J has a number coming up. Another Risperdal trial set to begin in Philly in December, an ongoing trial here in New Jersey concerning its talc powder and ovarian cancer, and more than 2,000 opioid lawsuits, guys, still on the table. Back over to you.
I was just going to say, Meg, this is far from the last time we're going to hear about a pharmaceutical company sort of embroiled in a court battle. What does this send, this message that this $8 billion in punitive damages potentially to other companies embroiled in these legal battles?
Yeah, Court, I've been talking with folks about that today who say such a large award is evidence of the kind of public hatred and distrust of the pharmaceutical industry. $8 billion to one person is out of step, experts say, with the actual damages that happened here and are huge compared to the compensatory damages. One CEO I spoke with called this an existential crisis moment for the drug industry, considering it is so disliked in the public, and it's a huge political punching bag. So this could be trouble for pharma companies that come up against juries in the future.
Meg, thanks so much. Now, shares of FedEx dropping to lows not seen since March 2016 today after Bernstein downgraded the company. Frank Collins at HQ with more. Frank.
Hey, good afternoon. Well, if you know, FedEx shares rallying late, up just about 0.75% after being mostly flat for the day, following a downgrade from Bernstein. Analyst David Vernon saying the bull thesis has been shredded by the company's spending, delayed integration of European carrier TNT, and its plan to focus on e-commerce with its ground segment that Vernon says will swamp the network with lower margin volume. A potential deal with China, however, could benefit FedEx. It's had issues over the mishandling of Huawei packages. U.S.-China shipping, only about 2% of FedEx revenues, but the company has a key regional hub there.
Thank you very much, Frank. Well, we've got just a little more than 5 minutes to go before the closing bell sounds. Levi shares lower, and that's despite earnings coming mostly in line with expectations after the bell yesterday. The U.S. wholesale business was a drag, but that was largely expected. Many analysts agree Levi is taking the right step for longer-term brand building, but they still see pressure in the near term. CEO Chip Bergh points to pressure from lower traffic in, quote, the legacy department stores and the chain stores. Shares of Levi down by 7%. Meantime, luxury conglomerate LVMH saw strong sales growth despite a big tourism drop in its key Hong Kong market in its most recent quarter. Bernstein estimates that Hong Kong makes up between 5 and 10% of total global luxury sales, around 6% for LVMH specifically. The company's fashion leather goods segment, that was the strongest, up a stronger than expected 19%. Those shares up by about 1.7%. That company just seems to keep grinding higher and higher, Mike.
I was going to say, I mean, that's coming off a really good run over the last couple of years and really bucking the trend. I think there's some other in the luxury segment that's been a lot softer. So I don't know if it's the portfolio of brands or the execution. But.
And Mark, do you think we can make bigger reads to draw on for the luxury market from LVMH's results?
Oh, wow. I don't think so. Okay. No, I mean, I think what we're looking at right now is I believe consumer buying preferences have shifted, right? I think we're looking at a consumer who is much more price conscious today than he or she was a few years ago. So, look, that performance has been phenomenal, but we're seeing great results from companies like TJ Maxx, right? The off-price retailers, where all those Levi jeans that weren't sold from Levi's or Kohl's or Macy's, that's where they end up, right? So I'd much rather be in a TJ Maxx right now.
Mike, just back to the broader markets very quickly. S&P stabilized, still up a full percent. All the sectors still high at the moment.
Yeah, and so we're just, I think we're really just kind of recouping what was lost yesterday in that very late kind of air pocket. You did have this blizzard of headlines about the visa restrictions. U.S. China really seemed like they were taking a hostile posture. So I think we're kind of brought back almost to a more neutral stance with regard to how the talks might pan out.
And as for the internals underneath, you've been having a look at that.
Yeah, I think it's net positive. Volume's a little bit light. It's kind of a quasi-holiday, obviously. But if you look at new highs, new lows, not particularly pronounced to the strong side. Bob was mentioning a lot of new lows for a day when the stock market is up 1% in the S&P. So you do have 100 new highs, 81 new lows. Look at the VIX index, the volatility index. It did tick a leg lower below 19 at around 2 p.m. when we did get those Fed minutes. I'm not sure why there was a lot of suspense around the Fed minutes, but you see here it's kind of coming off the upper end of its range. Still builds in a little bit of two-way risk in there because we have those trade talks still ongoing.
And like yesterday, sort of pulling back from those highs right as we move into that closing bell. We do just have about 2 minutes left to go. Let's send it over to Rick Santelli. He's got a check for us on the bond market. Hi, Rick.
Hi. If you look at 24-hour chart of 2-year note yields, you'll see obviously up. But it is giving a little back on the recent headlines regarding the Chinese delegation and the length of negotiations. If you look at a 1 week of 10s, we will close probably at a 1 week high in 10s. We're giving it up a little bit on 2 years. Everything's down a basis point since that headline. VIX, we like to watch the VIX. Well, there's a TY, a 10-year VIX. You see the chart there. It's at the lowest levels in 1 month. Bertha, we seem to be leading with the NASDAQ up over 1% today.
We do, and a lot of that is really just tech-driven and particularly chip-driven. We got the good news on Apple in terms of the analyst notes today, but the chips are really where we've seen that enthusiasm about the possibility of China. Teradyne, one of the standouts today at a 52-week high. It's about flat for the week. The sector overall, though, remains down 1% for a week, not making up its losses. Roku is another standout. The stock seeing its best daily gain in 2 years on an upgrade over at Macquarie. In the streaming wars, it certainly helps to have a platform. Meantime, American Airlines today, also a standout as the company said that its earnings look to be a little bit better than expected, notwithstanding the issues with the 737 MAX, which it hopes to bring back into circulation in early January. Nonetheless, the stock has been a loser for much of the year. Over to Bob.
And Bertha, we were at the highs for the day just 15 minutes ago. We're off of those highs on that Reuters headline. Beijing lowering expectations for progress for U.S. trade negotiations. Not clear lowered expectations for what, but if you look at the S&P 500, we came off the high. Remember that earlier in the day there was talk about they're going to offer a partial deal, buy agricultural products, but in exchange for no more tariffs here. Not clear if that's the lowered expectations. I suspect it is. Any lower than that, it's not even going to be a truce, essentially. So you see the move to the downside, but we've stabilized. Predictably, all of the trade-sensitive names moved down a bit. Caterpillar, for example, moved to the downside in the middle of the day. That was just off of the highs. And some of the other big industrial names like United Technologies, same situation. These are very predictable moves on any kind of trade talk. Not bad considering that headline going into the close. Dow Jones Industrial Average closing the day up 166 points. S&P 500 up 25 points. Always pegged around that 1% move. Always a little bit of flutter right around there.
Welcome to the Closing Bell, everyone. I'm Wilfred Frost.
And I'm Courtney Reagan in for Sarah Eisen today, along with Mike Santoli, CNBC Senior Markets Commentator. And we are in the market zone. You can see the day's market action on the right side of your screen, with the story still coming up on the tabs on the bottom of your screen.
Let's check in on how the markets closed. As Bob said, not bad at all, given that slightly worse trade headline in the last 10-15 minutes of the trading day. Though the net news throughout the day was more positive on trade, and that's why we finished high by 0.9% on the S&P, a little bit less for the Dow, a little bit more for the NASDAQ. All 11 S&P 500 sectors were higher, led by tech, up a full 1.45%.
Well, joining us now to talk about the market day, we have Mark Tepper from Strategic Wealth Partners. He's still with us. Also joining us, Chris Izzy from Bank of America Lynch Private Bank. Mike, I got to say that old adage about sell Rosh Hashanah, buy Yom Kippur, that kind of worked, didn't it?
It worked, although if our Cashin were here, he'd tell you the rule is you have to buy tomorrow morning, right? Because if you're observing Yom Kippur, you cannot buy the close today. Yes, but it is. We're down to a couple of percent or 3% since before Rosh Hashanah. That has worked, and I do think it also tells you there's been this sort of anxiety back and forth within this trading range. Yesterday, S&P down 45 points, most of it in the last hour. Today, we got 26 of it back, but where do we end up? Exactly where we closed 6 days ago. So it's not saying nothing's going on. What's going on is the market is kind of hanging in there and waiting and staying supported by low yields and a 2% economy, hoping that, in fact, there's some kind of a catalyst either from trade or some swing in the macro data that gets it moving one way or the other.
Chris, what have you been focused on most of all the last couple of weeks to decide your risk sentiment?
Yeah, I tell you, as Mike said, investors have really hit the pause button at all wealth levels across the board, whether you're the private client side or the institutional side. The pause button's been clearly hit. But the key is the market's been hanging in there. It's in this movement. It tried for a fourth wave of a rotation from ultra defensives to cyclicals, and it didn't really get that big push up in the wave. So then things relaxed itself. But the four main areas where we continue to watch is just like electricity in the household. You got to look at the meter. The meter is this: monetary policy. Check the box. It got more assertive. And the market tried to applaud it, but if we talked about balance sheet expansion literally a few weeks ago or a few months ago, the market would have taken that and ran with it. It's kind of hanging in there at this point. E, the earnings. T, trade. E, election risk. That's a big discussion lately. And then last but not least, recessionary concerns. So all those things within the meter is what most of our clients are paying attention to.
Mark, isn't it possible we keep talking about some kind of trade resolution, whether we get a deal or don't get a deal? But isn't it possible we sort of stay in this gray area for some time to come? And then what do you do?
Yeah, because, if you think about it, do the Chinese really have an incentive to get a deal done right now? Or might they drag their feet a little bit and see what happens with the 2020 election? So, I believe that they don't have a huge incentive to get a deal done right now. If there is no deal, I think we stay range bound. I think we continue to bounce between 28.25 and 30.25. So we do need some sort of a deal in order for us to finally break through. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, mid-October is when seasonality is finally on our side again, right? So if you go back to 1950, roughly 40% of the annual returns of the S&P 500 happen in the fourth quarter. So that is something to look forward to.
Although wasn't last year. Something to keep in mind. Everyone, stick with us. Let's find out the latest on trade and whether a deal's looking likely or not. Kayla Tashi is in D.C. with more. Kayla.
Well, Wilfred, it's those Reuters headlines from Chinese officials that have rocked the market and really moved this story forward as we're awaiting any glimmers of what the U.S. side is discussing behind closed doors. All of the leaks that have happened in the last day have come from the Chinese side, the sort of telegraphing of exactly where they stand and how they feel going into those high-level negotiations for the next 2 days. Now Reuters is reporting that Beijing is lowering its expectations for negotiations this week to broker any sort of agreement, truce, deal. And that is because these Chinese officials feel that goodwill was damaged by the U.S. Department of Commerce's blacklisting of those 28 Chinese security and surveillance companies and technology companies that it says surveilled China's Muslim minority populations, many of whom are now detained in northwest China. Reuters is reporting that really ruined the goodwill between the two sides here, and as such, that they are dialing back their expectations. But we learned this morning in another report that China's vice premier is still committed to pushing a partial deal, even though he is frustrated by the timing of these tech sanctions. I was just texting with a source, a person who is close to these talks, who says the tech sanctions that the Commerce Department announced are a real issue. It's unclear, though, the extent to which that issue will play out in these talks and how much of a potential deal breaker it really is for the Chinese side.
Kayla, thank you very much for that. Chris, what's your latest take on whether or not this is a major decision, a major factor in your decision making for sector allocation?
Well, I think you have to look at two things. From an economic perspective, it's pretty clear that the damage is more harmful to outside economies, particularly the China economy, and I argue the German economy. However, the economic impact in terms of confidence in the U.S. is slowly starting to gather momentum to the downside. We hear a lot about negotiations. We hear a lot about other things, but the most important part that we cannot have happen is the poor, weak activity in the industrial sector slip into the consumer sector. So from our perspective, trade, and you look at the companies that have done well when there has been good trade announcements, we need to see that relax itself to the upside a little bit to make sure that the slide in confidence doesn't continue and to allow sentiment to improve.
Mark, that is a good point. We talk so much about sort of the divergence in the economy between the consumer, between what businesses are saying and feeling and doing. How long can the consumer continue to hold us up?
Well, the consumer is 70% of the economy, so
right.
we can make it for quite some time. But we have seen even consumer data has started to peel back a little bit. Consumer confidence has come back a little bit. It's still high overall, consumer sentiment. So, I don't know how much longer the consumer can drive us. I really feel like in order for this economic expansion to continue, we need to start getting some CapEx and stuff like that. But the consumer's been leading us now for almost 11 years, right? I mean, It's crazy.
It's going to be an important holiday season. It always feels like it is, but this year there's going to be a lot of reads through on that season. Well, let's get back to Bob Pisani for the stocks in today's winner circle. Hi, Bob.
Hi, and it's we're up, but off of the highs. The volume very light today. Of course, we had a holiday, so keep an eye on that. In terms of new highs, not a lot of new highs, but some retail stocks continue to do well. Just want to point out another new high for Target. Small, tiny group of retailers doing great this year. Ross Stores, Walmart, TJX, but they are the exception rather than the rule. New high there for Target. And it's a great time to be an apartment owner. All of the apartment REITs are hitting new highs, including Equity Residential. Sam Zell's happy today. That's another new high. It's up 30% this year. Avalon Bay is another one, up 25% so far this year. That's a new high. Essex, Mid-America Apartments, all 52-week highs. Finally, we're essentially going nowhere last year. We pointed this out several times. Bespoke, my friend Paul over at Bespoke, pointing out a couple of interesting facts. We're within 2% above or below the levels we have traded on the S&P 1 month ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, and 12 months ago. That's a one-year chart you're looking at that red line. Essentially, we're back where we were almost a year ago. Guys, back to you.
Bob, thanks so much. Mike, the other thing that's been really interesting this week is how yields have tracked the headline moves in the S&P 500. And if you're not seeing yields rise, you're not probably going to see equities rise.
Yeah, that's been the pattern. And even though the rise has been very modest, I mean, they really are kind of sticking just above their lows. I think you can look at that chart of the 10-year yield and say, okay, it refused to go back to the August lows last week, so we can maybe call that a little bit of a buffer between where we are right now and that zone where we're really in a recession panic. And I think that's at least a cushion.
The buffer, we're going to watch that. Thank you, Mark Tepper, for being here with us, and Chris Heisey, thank you for joining us as well. Well, coming up, American Airlines is delaying the return of its Boeing 737 MAX planes until mid-January. We're going to break down the airline trade and what that means for consumers when Closing Bell comes back in just 90 seconds from now.
What gives me confidence about investment decisions? Rigorous fundamental research, with portfolio managers focused on the long term, who look beyond the spreadsheets to understand companies, from break room to boardroom. The only way to get a 360 view is to go around the world to get it. Can I rely on deep research to help make quality investment decisions? With Capital Group, I can. Talk to your advisor or consultant for investment risks and information.
At Southern New Hampshire University, we believe in education built for all people.
SNHU was the best experience of my life.
Without SNHU, I wouldn't be the leader I am today.
I graduated high school 19 years ago. I still finished.
In the military, you feel that sense of accomplishment. That's what SNHU is.
You will march from this arena and say to the world, I did it.
You did it. I love you too.
Welcome back. American Airlines, one of the best performers today on news. Lower fuel costs help margins in the third quarter, but the stock has been underperforming its peers lately, and pressure is mounting on CEO Doug Parker. Joining us now to discuss is CNBC.com's Leslie Josephs. Leslie, thanks so much for joining us. Good to see you.
Having me.
Let's talk about the headline in terms of more delays for the Boeing 737 MAX and its impact on American. The latest updates, were they much worse than expected or broadly in line with where people were?
We really don't have a sense from Boeing yet when this is going to be back in the air. Boeing says sometime in the fourth quarter, but we don't have any sign-off yet from the FAA or global regulators. So what airlines are having to do, like American, like Southwest and United, is delay it and delay it again. And now we're getting into January when American expects the MAX to be back into service.
What are the implications for American Airlines specifically to this MAX plane delay?
Well, the MAX is a very small part of its fleet. American has about 900 planes, and only 24 of them were MAXes at the time of the grounding. They have 76 more on order. But this is a very fuel-efficient plane, and it's very key to its growth. So American can't grow as it expected, as it wants to, because those planes are on the ground. It needs to reassign planes, cancel about 140 flights a day because of that. So that's not welcome news for them.
Industry-wide, is the grounding serving as kind of a kind of capacity cut by default? In other words, is it filtering into things like pricing, and is it having any beneficial effects for the airline, or is it really just about a headache?
It depends which airline it is. I mean, Delta doesn't have the MAX in its fleet, and it's been able to pick up some of those passengers that maybe would have been booked on a MAX on another airline, so that's a good thing for Delta. The thing is, when the MAX comes back, which would be great for Boeing, and I'm sure that they would welcome that, and a lot of the airlines who are their customers would welcome that, that's going to add a lot of capacity back into the market, and it's coming at a low point for travel. It travels, you hit a peak in the summer, but you're going to have a lot of pricing pressure when that MAX does come back.
Interesting stuff. Thank you, Leslie, for joining us and for continuing to follow this story for us. For more on the airlines, let's bring in Sevanthi Sethi. She's Managing Director and Airlines Analyst at Raymond James. Sevanthi, thank you for joining us. So you just heard Leslie sort of give us the update here and saying it's not as big of a deal perhaps for American or even Delta. What about the rest of the airlines that you cover as this plane continues to be delayed to its reintroduction?
Actually, I mean, I think it has been a notable impact for American. Obviously, the biggest impact has been on Southwest, which has the largest MAX fleet, and that was planned for. If you look at the U.S. as a whole, the MAX was supposed to be about 1.5 points of capacity in the summer, but by the winter, it was supposed to be 4% of the capacity. So you are, getting impacted, and clearly the ones that have seen a negative impact have been Southwest, American, and United, who are supposed to have those aircraft, and the beneficiaries have been like Delta and JetBlue that have been able to pick up some of that capacity, and the industry probably in general saw a benefit from higher prices, especially during the summer.
When are you expecting the MAX to be back in service, and in terms of your model for say, an American Airlines? And has the impact that it's been out of service declined as each month has passed?
Actually, it's probably from a impact on the airlines that were going to fly it. The impact's bigger, but it's more of a lost opportunity than a bigger lost opportunity than anything else. And from a capacity and a fair environment for the domestic industry, I would think it is a bit bigger impact on pricing for consumers, because those are capacity that would have otherwise been there, more trips for passengers. So the longer this goes, the bigger the impact. But it's a little hard to disaggregate. And so I mean, I think that, the sooner that it comes back, the better it is again for the operators. And we're right now modeling around mid-January for the aircraft to come back. But clearly, the longer the longer it takes to recertify the aircraft, the risk is higher. And it takes the airlines about 2 months to bring that aircraft back after it's recertified. So we need to get the recertification by mid-November, late November, for the aircraft to come back in January.
And you've got to convince passengers like me to get on one of those 737 MAX airplanes. I'm not real excited about that, I have to admit, even with the recertifications. But more broadly, American Airlines shares are up about 3% today, the company giving us some updated guidance. But more broadly, they've been suffering, down about 16% for the quarter. What's your expectation for the airline in the near to medium term?
Yeah, they've been hurt by a few kind of exogenous events like the MAX. They've had some issues with the mechanics that have hurt customer perception. Hopefully those things can reverse themselves and improve things. On the revenue front, Americans actually showing some really good performance. It's really, kind of where the investor concern is really on their balance sheet side, I think, more than anything else, because there is concern that we're heading into a downturn, and American has amongst the highest leverage around the group. And so that is causing a lot of investor concern. But as long as we don't go into a recession, there's going to be some nice free cash flow pickup at American. So there could be a nice setup here. But in the near term, that's what's weighing on investor sentiment.
And Samantha, what are you looking for in Delta tomorrow?
Yeah, so Delta's, already given a preview of what their third quarter looks like. So really the focus will be on a go-forward basis. They have indicated to investors that the fourth quarter unit costs are going to be high for a myriad of reasons, and so most of it is not continuing on. So I think the biggest focus for investors will be what they're seeing on the revenue environment. If so far airlines are seeing really strong demand, and all the headlines that you had about trade, macro, and even in the industrial sector, the weakness hasn't really come through from a demand perspective. So I think that all eyes will be on commentary on how corporate demand is holding and just how leisure demand is holding. But so far, it seems to be pretty good.
Samantha, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And don't miss tomorrow CNBC's interview with Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian. That's 7 a.m. Eastern on Squawk Box. Switching focus, President Trump is speaking at the White House just moments ago. Our Eamon Javers asked him a question about trade.
Mr. President, there are reports this afternoon that the Chinese are lowering their expectations for a trade deal. Are you also lowering your expectations for a trade deal?
No, I don't think so. I think they feel that I'm driving a tough bargain, but I have to. You know it better than anybody. You do a good job over there. Watch a lot. We are so far down in terms of where we started from presidents that didn't do their job for many years. Since the World Trade Organization founding, China went in 2001 or so. China went in and just ripped off the world. So, and I told that to President Xi. I said, this can't be like a 50-50 deal. Because a 50-50 deal, you're like up there, we're down here. So a 50-50 deal, it doesn't work, right? You got to have a little balance. This has to be a better deal from our standpoint. And I think they fully understand it. One of the really good meetings I had today was with our people on opioids and drugs and fentanyl in particular with respect to your question. And they said that Chinese leadership has a lot of respect for our president. And they are really being much more careful. It's a much different situation. We have some great drug numbers. Now, what is great drug? If you're down 15, 16, 20, 25%, it's still horrible what's going on in this country and in the world. In the whole world, it's horrible. But no, I think they have a lot of respect for us. First time they've ever respected us. I think China has a lot of respect for me and for our country and for what we're doing. And I think they can't believe what they've gotten away with for so many years.
Are the Chinese wrong to be putting pressure on the NBA, sir?
Well, the NBA is a different thing. I mean, I watch this guy, Steve Kerr, and he was like a little boy. He was so scared to be even answering the question. He couldn't answer the question. He was shaking. I don't know. He didn't know how to answer the question. And he'll talk about the United States very bad.
President, they're answering a question from our Eamon Javers on the topic of trade. Nothing totally groundbreaking and new, but Mike, I guess a slight offset to that headline at the end of the day that did take around about 50 points or so off the Dow. Another sign that we need to wait till the end of the week, till the meeting's over, and get the readout from
really just a reiteration of, I think, the broad stance the president has struck for a while now. One question that does hang out there is in this idea of, well, it can't be a 50-50 deal, right? The U.S. is not really prepared to make many concessions. Are these escalations that we've seen, whether it's on the national security lines or Hong Kong, anything like that, are they now things that could be dialed back and actually represent a concession, or even the currency manipulator status that the administration places? So we don't know any of that, but that's just, I think, in the mix in terms of handicapping how this might proceed.
Yeah, those are good points, sort of new pieces of this battle escalating. We have some news on Target. Eric Chimmy has those details. Hi, Eric.
That's right, Courtney. So a new CFO, Target naming Michael Fidelki as Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. He will also oversee Target's financial and retail services services, which includes guest relations and management of its financial products, including Target Red Card. In more than 15 years at Target, Fidelki has served in a variety of roles across finance, merchandising, HR, and operations. Courtney, I know you'll have a lot to comment on this. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Eric. Yeah, we previously knew that Target CFO Kathy Smith was going to be transitioning out of that role and into a strategic advisor role. And we've been watching shares of Target here pretty closely over the last several days, getting a strong buy initiation at Raymond James and moving to some new highs. So it's a name we've been watching closely in the consumer space, but this move wasn't entirely a surprise, as we knew Kathy Smith was moving to a different role. Well, coming up next, a pulse check on the market's risk appetite. Mike Santoli, he's still here. He's going to head over to the telestrator for that.
TuneIn puts you on the sideline for the 2019 college football season free all year long. With college football on TuneIn, hear the home and away call for more than 140 schools live, regular season matchups and rivalry games, conference championships and bowl games, the college football playoff.
The throw, he steps up, he's going deep down the right side. Andrews.
You can listen to it all for free.
The end zone, touchdown.
At home, on campus, or on the road, hear the excitement and pageantry of college football all season long, free on TuneIn.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with your daily sports update. Remind you, Thursday Night Football is happening this week. 8:20 p.m. Eastern is kickoff. We've got the New York Giants at the New England Patriots. Now, to find it, search NFL, favorite your team so you don't miss any of the action.
The under center on the retreat, dropping back. He's pressured. He rolls right. He throws it down the right side for an open Bolden. Catches the 5 into the end zone. Touchdown!
Make sure to favorite your team and search NFL. That way you don't miss any of the games. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
Deep left center field. A grand slam!
October baseball is here, and TuneIn Premium is your ticket to the 2019 MLB postseason. Featuring the home and away feeds for every game, TuneIn Premium delivers every call of the ALCS, NLCS, and the 2019 World Series through the voices of the local radio broadcast teams.
In the air, left field and deep. He's at the wall.
Now until a new champion is crowned, hear every play of the 2019 MLB postseason live on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
A new season, new surroundings, and a #1 overall makes his Wednesday night hockey debut. Devils, Flyers, 7:30 Eastern on NBCSN.
We'll go back to the closing bell. Let's send it over to Mike Santoli. He's got his third dashboard of the day. What do you got, Mike?
Calling this dull with style, describing something dull with style was one old writer's definition of art. But what we have on Wall Street is dullness is actually been very much in fashion for a while. If you define it as these low volatility stocks, these stable businesses that are kind of boring, it's a relationship we look at a lot. The white line is these low vol stocks, defensive stocks, very much a well-defined uptrend, hardly any give back, even though you had that rotation into cyclical stocks. This is high beta stocks, the ones that are most aggressive, that move most dramatically relative to the overall market. And I mean, it's hard to say there's anything going on here except kind of returning to the bottom end of its range. A lot of cyclical stocks, a lot of highly leveraged companies, things like that. So right now, there's not been much of a change in character of the market. It is the stable defensive trade that works late in the cycle that remains intact right now. Maybe we're going to get a change of character with a trade deal or some confidence that the expansion is healthy. But for now, I don't think the market is telling us that's in the offing.
Mike, thank you. Up next, we're going global. China tensions flaring. We're digging into a new bearish trade headline and corporate fallout in Hong Kong.
Plus, Turkey launching military offensives in Syria. The latest on that developing story when Closing Bell comes right back.
We trust USA more than any other company out there. They give us...
Watford, it's chilly outside, and you're staying in with your feet up, and they can stay up. Because with Hive Active Heating, you can set the perfect temperature without even lifting a finger.
Alexa, ask Hive to boost my heating.
And by never having to heat an empty home, you could save up to £120 a year on your heating bill.
Alexa, play my Nice and Toasty playlist.
Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, and TuneIn Premium puts you at field level for every...
And it's a home run.
Single...
And gone!
Game.
And that gone, a home run.
With TuneIn Premium, catch every pitch of every inning of every Major League postseason game until the final out of the World Series.
0-2 pitch, little half swing, and it hit...
At home or on the road, Major League Baseball's postseason action is on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball is gone.
Upgrade today.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with your daily sports update. Today, we've got another Game 5, Nationals at the Los Angeles Dodgers.
You know, you train for it, you dream about as a kid, and, you know, you want to have those opportunities to just see how your stuff stacks up.
First pitch is at 8:37 p.m. This series is tied 2-2, Game 5. If you want to catch this Game 5, search Nationals, Dodgers, or even MLB. Favorite your team. Set up reminders so you don't miss any of the playoffs. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
Next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raz, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
Welcome back to the Closing Bell. Costco just putting out numbers for its September sales, putting up really strong numbers here for the United States, up 5%. And then when you strip out the impact of gasoline and foreign exchange in the United States, up 5.7%, all in for the total company, ex-gasoline and foreign exchange, up 5.6%, and e-commerce up 18.5% there. It's been working on rebuilding that e-commerce division, as it had been a little bit late to the game, offering its items for sale there in a way that was very attractive to consumers at the very least.
Time now for a CNBC News update with Sue Herrera. Hi, Sue.
Hello, Wilf. Hello, everyone. Here's what's happening at this hour. Protesters camped out on the streets of London for a third straight day in the hopes of raising awareness about climate change. While most have been peaceful demonstrations, police say they have made 500 arrests. BMW is recalling more than 257,000 vehicles in the U.S. over concerns with the backup camera settings. Drivers are able to turn off that feature, which could violate federal safety standards. The recall will begin next month. GlaxoSmithKline says it's taking a precautionary step in removing its popular heartburn medication, Zantac, from all markets worldwide. The move comes days after the FDA found unacceptable levels of cancer-causing impurities in the drug. And on a lighter note, take a look at that big guy. A restaurant in Pennsylvania is getting into the Halloween spirit with something strange. In an homage to Ghostbusters, the owners of Angelo's have installed a huge Stay Puft marshmallow on the roof. And a few monster tentacles, too. That's the news update this hour. Courtney, I'll send it back downtown to you.
Thank you very much, Sue. We do have a developing story overseas. Turkey launching an offensive in northern Syria. Ilan Mui is here with the latest. Hi, Ilan.
Well, Courtney, there is now a report that Turkish ground forces have crossed into northern Syria. And of course, that conflict is creating a politically fraught moment for President Trump here at home. Republicans and Democrats have criticized his decision to pull U.S. troops from Syria. But this afternoon, Trump said he is not worried about escalation.
Are you concerned about escalation, and are you concerned that Erdogan will try to wipe out the Kurds?
I will wipe out his economy if that happens. I've already done it once with Pastor Brunson. I'm sure that I hope that he will act rationally.
So the question now is, how far will Turkey go? What consequences would Trump be willing to impose? Guys, the Turkish president is scheduled to meet with Trump at the White House next month. A lot could change before then. Back over to you.
Elon, a lot of Republican members of Congress criticized him on Monday when he tweeted about this topic. Has that level of criticism escalated at all today as President Erdogan has begun his attacks?
Yeah, we are hearing from even those close to the president, like Senator Lindsey Graham, who were saying that this was a poor decision. We're also hearing from presidential candidates on the Democratic side who say that this was a decision that endangers America's allies, the Kurds, in the fight against ISIS. So we are hearing bipartisan agreement that President Trump perhaps should rethink that and should have some tough words for the Turkish president.
Elon, thanks so much for that. We're going to switch focus now. We've got a news alert on Bed Bath & Beyond. Eric Chemi's got the details. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Wilf, that's right. So Bed Bath & Beyond naming Mark Tritton as president and CEO effective November 4th. The stock, you can see, up about 17% right now on that news. Tritton most recently served as executive vice president and chief merchandising officer at Target. In addition to Target, he also worked at Nordstrom, Timberland, and Nike in a 30-year retail career. But he is coming to Bed Bath & Beyond, and as you can see, stock's up 18%. The market really likes that pick. Back to you.
Eric, thank you. The dots connected now.
Yes,
Morning.
finally. So we've had this interim CEO of Bed Bath & Beyond since about May, as they've been going through this really big restructuring. They're doing everything from cutting costs to evaluating the portfolio and all of the different assets that they have, doing some executive reshuffling. They've gotten a new board. They had this activist group that was in there sort of pressuring them to make these changes. And look at that move. It actually just keeps going higher, now up 19%, naming Mark Tritton, which was also part of the Target announcement that he was resigning. And when we talked about them naming the new CFO. So sort of a double announcement for Target. And now we know exactly where Mr. Tritton is going. And obviously Target has had a nice run with him as the chief merchandising officer. An interesting move, of course, with the timing at least right ahead of Christmas. But we know that gets set well ahead for a lot of the retailers.
But even as a gesture, even what it reflects, it seems like, okay, they're going to try to raise the metabolism of the company a little bit in terms of merchandising. By the way, 50% of Bed Bath & Beyond shares sold short.
Yes.
So this is obviously changing that short thesis for the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Very much so. It's a move we've been waiting for some time, and now here we have it.
Back to the broader market, stocks closed off session highs on reports that Beijing's lowering its expectations on U.S. trade talks, saying the blacklisting of 28 Chinese companies this week was difficult for goodwill. Let's bring in Michael Herson, Director of Asia Practice at the Eurasia Group. Michael, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. Let's talk about expectations going into this round of trade talks. I mean, it's been up and down, the expectations all week. Sum it up for us. Where do you stand on what could be achieved?
Well, I don't think we're going to see any breakthroughs, certainly from this round of talks. I don't even think we're going to see a formal agreement of a deal, a one talks end. But it does seem like we're in a short-term positive in the sense that Beijing has reacted in a quite restrained way to a really inflammatory move that the United States took earlier this week with sanctions over Chinese technology companies and China's provincial government in Xinjiang province over treatment of the Muslim minority population there. So it's quite a strong move that had been in the works, had been debated within the U.S., and the timing is really notable, right? They make this quite hard-hitting move right on the eve of trade talks. So it really tests Beijing's restraint here. But, you know, China did not cancel the trip. Talks thus far, anecdotally, seem to be somewhat productive. So I think short-term positive in the sense of avoiding further escalation for the time being, but I think there are real reasons to be skeptical as to how sustainable any truce will be coming out of these talks.
They might have been restrained in some of those answers to our inflammatory marks over here, but talk about what's going on in Hong Kong and in China's response to some of these United States-based companies operating over there. I mean, that's a real risk for businesses.
Absolutely, and that is one of the pressures on this relationship that I think makes it smart to be really skeptical and cautious about what the medium term looks like beyond these next few days. So that's right. Chinese companies are taking their cue from China's leadership in standing up to what they view as politically incorrect statements or interference in China's domestic affairs with respect to Hong Kong. To the U.S. business community, that increasingly looks like it's infringing on freedom of speech. So I think this is a move that, or a reaction that on the one hand demonstrates China's market power, but on the other hand, I think is going to galvanize a backlash or maybe a more constructive conversation in the U.S. business community about how to deal with this, because this is the new normal. This is not going away. Companies are going to continue to be caught between China's demands on this kind of issue and the backlash that they face at home for being seen as bending over backwards to Beijing.
To what extent do U.S. companies that are taking a real interest in the Hong Kong protests yet already have sales in China kind of being a bit over the top, given that freedom of speech doesn't exist in China and they may have had operations in there for many years and made a lot of revenue from there? Is there an odd kind of disconnect between why you speak up to one issue but not the other?
I think there is something of a disconnect, and I think it's quickly closing in the sense of businesses now recognizing what's at stake here. We haven't seen much of this to date, actually, insofar as U.S. businesses are concerned. Whether it's the trade war or Hong Kong, U.S. brands haven't been really at risk until now, and the NBA is a huge target, but the NBA is also large enough to be able to push back. And with Adam Silver, the commissioner, revising the NBA statement and pushing back on China's pushback and saying, look, this was one employee and we stand for freedom of speech, I think they ended up in a pretty good place, the NBA did, but it took a long time to get there. And this kind of statement where you anger China, but you also anger your domestic audience is something that I think businesses are going to have to be better in terms of their response time.
Something that all these businesses are going to have to learn how to handle as they go forward, just as they have in the past. Thank you for joining us, Michael Hersham from the Eurasia Group. Well, still ahead, hitting the brakes on Tesla. Consumer Reports slamming the carmaker's automation feature. We'll hear from the reviewer behind that story. That's coming up next on The Closing Bell.
CNBC News Up. ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Deep left center field. A grand slam!
October baseball is here, and TuneIn Premium is your ticket to the 2019 MLB postseason. Featuring the home and away feeds for every game, TuneIn Premium delivers every call of the ALCS, NLCS, and the 2019 World Series through the voices of the local radio broadcast teams.
In the air, left field and deep. He's at the wall.
Now until a new champion is crowned, hear every play of the 2019 MLB postseason live on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Camila Cabello tells The Sun that dating Shawn Mendes is scary. She says, it's almost more scary because you have more to lose. I think when you fall in love with someone you've known for a long time, there's more at stake. But it also feels more special because it feels like the love story you see in the movies of people who have known each other for a long time but have been too stupid to realize it or say it, and then it happens, and that's beautiful too. To hear music from Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello, search today's hits on TuneIn.
From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with your daily sports update. Today, we've got two games. We got Game 5. Series is tied 2-2. Cardinals-Braves. First pitch, 5:02 p.m. Eastern.
I mean, I think it's a great opportunity for us. We're going back home, and to play in front of our fans at home is a great thing. We have tremendous fans at home and great support at home. So,
if you want to catch that game, favorite the Cardinals or the Braves to find out who's going to take it. Simple and easy. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long. Today, the Cotton Bowl in Dallas will be rocking for the 150th edition of the Red River Showdown. On one side, you have 11th-ranked Texas, led by their star QB, Sam Ehlinger. On the other side, you have undefeated and 6th-ranked Oklahoma, looking to avenge last year's loss. Texas quarterback Jalen Hurts will look to continue his Heisman campaign on the national stage. Kickoff starts at 12 p.m. Eastern. Just search college to listen today.
Tesla's Smart Summon is the company's latest self-driving feature, drawing headlines. Consumer Reports tested Smart Summon on the Model 3 and found that it was glitchy, saying that the automation even drove, quote, erratically, like a drunken or distracted driver. We reached out to Tesla for comment, but we have not heard back. Joining us now is Jake Fisher, Consumer Reports Senior Director of Auto Testing. So, Jake, you did the test. What exactly do you mean by a drunken driver here?
Well, I suppose it's pretty disappointing when you actually look at the marketing copy of what this feature is supposed to do. It's actually part of a $6,000 option of full self-driving. And this feature is really supposed to, they bill it as, you're at the supermarket, it's raining, you hit the button, and a car arrives to pick you up. It doesn't quite work that way. And really, when you get down to the fine print, it's very clear of what the limitations are. It doesn't notice the direction of traffic. It can't necessarily detect curbs. We found it tends to just drive in the kind of the middle of the road, not in the side of the road. Sometimes it'll stop in the middle of traffic, blocking other traffic, and then you don't have the convenience. You're actually sprinting out to the parking lot to avoid a traffic jam.
So, Jake, clearly you were disappointed by it, but was that in part relative to its cost, relative to your expectations? I mean, how does it compare to what else is out there in the marketplace in this sort of area at the moment?
Well, that's a really great question. I mean, I think it's disappointing that it does not perform how it's built. So, I mean, if someone actually just spends $6,000 and to supposedly get this feature, what they get doesn't really match how it's built. It is really the first vehicle that is really operating remotely like that. So it is very interesting. I mean, look, as an engineer, as someone who is interested in technology, it certainly is interesting that it could do it. But as a useful feature, not so much.
Do you think this is something that can be fixed?
Well, I think this is something that is really a work in progress. I mean, I think in reality, what you're doing is you're kind of operating as kind of a science experiment. After you purchase it, you realize that it's beta. It's developing over time. So, I mean, I think clearly the use will improve over time, but it's just really important to know that when you're spending that $6,000, you're part of the testing of this. You're not really receiving the benefit of it.
And Jake, just to confirm, you still have to be sat there in the car behind the wheel. It's like a sort of amped up cruise control as opposed...
No, let me be perfectly clear. No, you can be outside of the vehicle. So you actually operate it on an app on your cell phone. So no one is behind the wheel at all. So, I mean, certainly as a gimmick, it's very impressive to see a vehicle operate with no one behind the wheel, operating the acceleration and the brake, turning the steering wheel while you are away from the vehicle. Very different from really anything else we're seeing. However, you still need to watch the vehicle. So this is not an autonomous vehicle by any figment of the imagination. You need to watch this vehicle, and you kind of have to keep it out of harm's way. So you really have to pay close attention and make sure that it's not doing anything it shouldn't. I mean, it does a pretty good job of detecting pedestrians and stopping. It's very conservative, but not always. And actually, we've seen, even in social media, a lot of situations where this is causing fender benders and accidents in parking lots.
So you got to be careful. You're paying $6,000 to be a part of a beta test for something that's still pretty glitchy. Jake Fisher, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Well, up next, a major wildfire prevention plan. PG&E cutting power to hundreds of thousands in California. The latest when Closing Bell comes back.
You should. Fortunately, there's only a 1 in 11 million chance of being bitten by a shark.
Ow!
Oh, unlucky. Never mind, at Curry's PC World, there's a 1 in 10 chance to get half your money back on all 2019 LG OLED TVs, like the LG C9, described by which as simply the best. Its OLED technology brings nature alive with astonishingly accurate colour and clarity, and there's up to £500 off. So the question is, are you feeling lucky? At Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply. GB16 plus. See currys.co.uk.
The MLB is in full swing.
Looking up, and this one is up and out. A home run.
Swung on and into the air to deep left. That ball is high. That is far. That is gone.
To listen, just search MLB Today on TuneIn Premium so you don't miss a moment of the games on TuneIn.
MSNBC is on TuneIn. Get up-to-the-minute coverage on news and events from around the world with MSNBC's live 24/7 station on TuneIn. At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with MSNBC's full lineup of shows, including Hardball with Chris Matthews.
Hi, I'm Chris Matthews. Thanks for listening to MSNBC on TuneIn.
And The Rachel Maddow Show. Plus, when news breaks, MSNBC has you covered with live updates, expert analysis, and more. Search MSNBC on TuneIn today.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Female First as Jay-Z and Beyonce are working on a new song together. A source tells The Sun that they recently shot a music video for their new track. It's one of her most extravagant and expensive shoots. It was mostly filmed in LA and has a highly choreographed routine and also a steamy romantic scene. She's working with some new creatives and is ready to change things up. To hear music from Beyonce, search today's hits on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores.
What's happening in college football this week? This Saturday, another clash of undefeated SEC teams, this time in Baton Rouge under the lights. The Florida Gators take their perfect season on the road to face Joe Burrow and the high-scoring LSU Tigers. The action starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. Just search college to listen today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
There's really only two people that matter on this one, and that's President Xi and myself. We get along very well. I can't imagine he likes me the way he did when I first became president.
That was President Trump moments ago talking about the trade negotiations with China that will be happening here coming up. The president said the U.S. has had to drive a hard bargain on trade. They say, look, he says it's got to be a deal that really benefits us more than them. 50-50 is not what the president is looking for. Let's send it over to Mike Santoli for his final dashboard of the day. What do you got, Mike?
I have a mild jolt. That would be the job openings and labor turnover survey the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts out. It actually came out this morning, and there was a decline. So this basically shows you just how tight the labor market is. Still more than 7 million open jobs in the country. That still exceeds the number of unemployed people. So that's clearly a pretty strong state of affairs. However, you don't have to squint too hard to see this number having rolled over pretty pronouncedly. And I will say this is still a high number for just how low unemployment is. We have 3.5% unemployment. Normally you'd see fewer job openings, but it is kind of rolling over. I would say people were concerned because that's the way it looked before the last recession. And obviously this survey began right there, right in, I think, the year 2000. So that was at another peak. However, the good news, and we keep pointing to this, right? That 2016 slowdown, near recession, industrial recession, whatever we actually want to call it, we did see year-over-year declines the way we are seeing right now, or at least a pullback. So we're going to have to watch this just to see if the job market, which has been a strong core of all the macro data, gives way, guys.
Mike, thank you. Up next, taking aim at big tech. That's what the OECD is doing with its latest global tax plan. We'll break that down when Closing Bell returns.
Oh, look who's home. Long time no see. You haven't changed a bit. Come on in. Welcome back.
With genuine BMW expertise, parts, and a convenient range of options to suit you, when it comes to caring for your BMW, there's no place like home. Book your BMW service online 24/7. T's and C's apply, subject to availability, participating retailers only.
Now, let's take a look at you.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long. Today, the Cotton Bowl in Dallas will be rocking for the 150th edition of the Red River Showdown. On one side, you have 11th-ranked Texas, led by their star QB, Sam Ehlinger. On the other side, you have undefeated and 6th-ranked Oklahoma, looking to avenge last year's loss. Texas quarterback Jalen Hurts will look to continue his Heisman campaign on the national stage. Kickoff starts at 12 p.m. Eastern. Just search college to listen today.
From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with the Daily Sports Update. NFL action is tomorrow right here on TuneIn. New York Giants at the New England Patriots. Kickoff is 8:20 p.m. Eastern if you want to catch that game.
We do everything each week to adjust the players that we have on the field, try to do the things that they do best, and
give them the best chance to compete against the team we're playing against. So this game will be no different.
If you want to catch this game tomorrow, search NFL and favorite your team. Thanks for tuning in Sports Update.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, and TuneIn Premium puts you at field level for every.
And it's a home run.
Single.
And gone.
Game.
And that gone, a home run.
With TuneIn Premium, catch every pitch of every inning of every Major League postseason game until the final out of the World Series.
0-2 pitch, little half swing, and it hit.
At home or on the road, Major League Baseball's postseason action is on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball is gone.
Upgrade today.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
The OECD taking aim at tech giants. Deirdre Bosa is here with more on that story. Hey, Dee.
Hey, Wilf. Well, there have been ongoing efforts for the so-called digital tax, which the U.S. so far has resisted, questioning whether it discriminates against American companies. This time could be different, though, as it draws on U.S. suggestions. Now, it would still force the likes of Google, Amazon, Facebook to pay more tax in countries where customers actually use their products and services versus the status quo now where headquarters or patents are allowed. Critically, though, this would go beyond tech companies to affect other highly profitable brands like those in luxury goods or automobile. The tax proposal coming from the OECD would carve out new winners and losers in the digital economy. Large European countries like the UK, Germany, and France, they would be winners as they'd be better able to levy tax on corporate income earned from sales in their countries. Likely hurt, though, would be low tax investment hubs like Ireland and Switzerland. Wilf, back to you.
And Dee, I guess the most significant development of this is it's a united group of countries that are proposing this, the OECD proposing it, rather than France or the UK individually introducing some new tax, which then does look like it is specifically focused on US tech companies and then becomes a bit of a quid pro quo type trade war, whereas if this comes together and is accepted by all those nations as one, it's pretty hard for anyone to push back on it.
Yeah, absolutely. That French digital tax was problematic because, some in the U.S. felt that discriminated against those big tech companies. This one is much wider in scope. It draws on some U.S. suggestions. As I mentioned, it doesn't just go after tech, though they would be highly affected. It goes after luxury brands and cars as well. So this is more likely to get support, but we're still a ways away from this being passed and having any kind of cohesive global digital tax.
Got it. Dee, thank you very much. Well, up next, PG&E cutting power to hundreds of thousands in California. The latest when Closing Bell comes back.
Introducing Inspirato Pass.
Today, your information is more exposed than ever. When you shop, sign in, or browse, you could be vulnerable to cybercriminals. More online threats demand more protection. That's why new Norton 360 provides multiple layers of protection, combining device security, secure VPN, password manager, and cloud backup all in one solution. Get new Norton 360, starting at $24.99 for the first year.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Camila Cabello tells The Sun that dating Shawn Mendes is scary. She says, it's almost more scary because you have more to lose. I think when you fall in love with someone you've known for a long time, there's more at stake. But it also feels more special because it feels like the love story you see in the movies of people who have known each other for a long time but have been too stupid to realize it or say it, and then it happens, and that's beautiful too. To hear music from Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello, search today's hits on TuneIn.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium. This Thursday, hear the home and away call as the second-place NFC East New York Giants visit the first-place AFC East New England Patriots at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
It is long enough, and it is good!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, and TuneIn Premium puts you at field level for every...
And it's a home run!
Single...
And gone!
Game.
That gone, a home run!
With TuneIn Premium, catch every pitch of every inning of every...